Mommy and Daddy have been thinking and talking a lot about this. We have decided we are going to be running for this position. Maybe you'll get a chance if you behave to go back to Iowa. Would you like that?
You like Iowa, don't you?
Giving the politically correct answer there about the state of Iowa. That was Louisiana Governor Bobby Jindal's somewhat unconventional announcement video from earlier this week, where he broke the news to his children that he was running for president. We've also learned that New Jersey's Governor Chris Christie will jump into the race for the Republican nomination on Tuesday. And that now takes the number of declared major Republican candidates to 14. Interestingly, Jindal and Christie do have something in common. They're both one-time rising stars of the party who are getting hit hard in their own states. And they'll both be hoping somehow to turn their problems in their backyards into advantages to show that they have the conviction to lead, even if unpopular, on the national stage. I'm joined now by the governor of Louisiana, Bobby Jindal. Welcome back to Meet the Press, Governor.
Chuck, thank you for having me. Of course my kids love Iowa. If they know of Iowa, they went to the Iowa State Fair. They had a deep-fried candy bar. Who wouldn't love that?
There you go. Pander, pander, pander away. Let me start with this. Put up this map here. Just one state in the union has not issued any marriage license since the court ruling on Friday, and it is your state. In Louisiana. Even there's been some in Mississippi, in some counties in Mississippi, some in Texas. Can you explain why your state hasn't implemented the law yet?
Sure, Chuck, look, I strongly disagree with the court's ruling. According to Chief Justice Roberts, they weren't even reading, this has nothing to do with the Constitution, but of course we're going to comply with the court order. We don't have a choice. Our agencies will comply with the court order. We were in a situation where we actually had it in our state constitution that marriage is between a man and a woman. A local federal judge actually upheld that. It was upheld. We are now waiting for the Fifth Circuit to reverse that ruling. They'll implement the Supreme Court's order. We've got no choice to comply, even though I think this decision was the wrong one.
So how quickly do you think you'll end up complying with the law?
Well, look, it'll be up to the court as soon as they issue their ruling. I suspect it'll be a matter of days. I don't know how quickly they will move.
All right.
But, Chuck, look, I do support, I know there are efforts in Congress to restore our 10th Amendment rights in response to this ruling, especially when it comes to marriage. I think the court shouldn't have ignored the 10th Amendment. Here's where the next fight's going. I think the left is now going to go after our First Amendment rights. I think it is wrong for the federal government to force Christian individuals, businesses, pastors, churches to participate in wedding ceremonies that violate our sincerely held religious beliefs. We have to stand up and fight for religious liberty. That's where this fight is going. The left wants to silence us. Hillary Clinton wants to silence us. We're not going away.
Well, I want to get you to respond, because you bring up a couple of debate points here that are familiar. But first, I want you to respond to this. This is from Rick Grinnell. He's a longtime conservative foreign policy voice, worked in the Bush administration, and he makes a conservative case for same-sex marriage, writing this on FoxNews.com. The debate on marriage within the Republican Party has been hijacked by those who wish to dictate their beliefs onto others. The only true conservative position, the individual right of marriage for all, has been affirmed by the Supreme Court. It's time for consistent conservatives to come out in favor of the court's ruling. That's a conservative argument for same-sex marriage. Why do you believe he's wrong?
Well, look, I think he's wrong. I think Hillary Clinton, I think President Obama's wrong. Chuck, look, all your viewers know that both the President and Hillary evolve their views because of opinion polls. They can read opinion polls just like the Supreme Court. My view of marriage is based on my Christian faith. No earthly court's decision is going to change that. I think marriage is between a man and a woman. Now, look, I think we're all created equal in God's eyes, and I think we need to respect and love those we disagree with. I think we can have religious liberty without discrimination. My views on marriage aren't evolving with the polls. I can read polls just like the president can. It's based on my faith. I think it should remain between a man and a woman.
Now, the issue of religion and faith was used in the 60s during the debate about interracial marriage. None other than former President Harry Truman. Here's the New York Times from September 12, 1963. The headline, Truman opposes biracial marriage, and here is his reasoning, Governor. He said that racial intermarriage ran counter to teachings of the Bible. So are you comfortable using religion as a way to defend your position on marriage?
Chuck, I am. Look, I think it's offensive to evangelical Christians, to Catholics that are trying to follow their church's teachings, and millions of other Americans who believe that marriage is between a man and a woman. It has been taught in our faith for centuries. It was just a few years ago the position held by President Obama and Secretary Clinton. This wasn't just a Republican position. So I think it's offensive to try to equate the two. I'm glad that America has moved towards a much better view on race relations. I've said we need to stop viewing ourselves as hyphenated Americans. We're not African Americans or Indian Americans. We're all Americans. I think viewing people by the color of their skin is one of the dumbest ways to view people. I've written that. I have said that. So I think it's offensive to equate evangelical Christians, Catholics, others that view marriages between a man and a woman as being racist. We're not racist. We love our fellow man. We think we're all equal under God's eyes. We simply believe that marriage, we don't believe we should change the definition of marriage simply because of opinion polls or because of a court that, quite frankly, isn't looking at the Constitution. Earlier this week, Scalia says that words no longer have meaning in their Obamacare decision. So you now have a court that's not reading the Constitution, not reading the dictionary. Why couldn't the court have said, we're going to respect the decisions made by the states? Why not say, we're going to defer to the elected representatives of the people?
I want to go to the launch of your campaign. You don't start out, at least at home. It's not like you're getting a good favorite son send-off. Here's your job approval rating, the most recent poll, Southern Media and Opinion Research, sitting at 32%. That was actually lower than President Obama's job rating in the state of Louisiana. And then I've put a summary together of what has been Republican criticism of your tenure as governor. Jennifer Rubin, conservative columnist in the Washington Post, says you suffer from awkward overeagerness. A Republican state representative, Chris Broadwater, says that he's concerned that your campaign doesn't reflect who you really are. Eric Erickson, an influential movement conservative, wrote this about one of your appearances, that you throw rhetorical bombs simply to get notice. Ramesh Ponnuru of the National Review called one of your plans, your health care plan, simply would cause millions to lose coverage. You don't deal with that. Former Republican Governor Buddy Roemer says when it comes to the Baton Rouge that you've gone AWOL. What's happened here? Why do so many Republicans seem concerned, critical of your tenure as governor and of your launch here on the national stage?
Well, Chuck, two things. If I were afraid of polls, I never would have been elected in 2 landslide elections, winning a highest percentage in our state's last election for governor. If I were afraid of polls, we wouldn't have privatized our charity hospital system, wouldn't cut our state budget 26%, wouldn't have cut over 30,000 state government bureaucrats, wouldn't have done statewide school choice. Here's the real record. In Louisiana, we've got more people working than ever before, earning a higher income than ever before. We're a top 10 state for private sector job creation. Chuck, when you do that, you're going to make the big government people unhappy. We've upset the apple cart. We've taken on the status quo. We've made big changes. Secondly, I've said in my campaign, I want to run a campaign where we embrace our principles. Establishment Republicans don't want us to do that. Jeb Bush says we've got to be willing to lose the primary in order to win the general election. I strongly disagree with that. Let me translate that for you. What some of those Republicans are saying, what Jeb Bush is saying is we've got to hide who we are. Nonsense. We don't just need to send a Republican to D.C. We need to send somebody who will take on the conventional wisdom. Republicans in D.C. say you cannot repeal Obamacare. That was one of the criticisms that you just read. You cannot shrink the federal government. You cannot balance the budget. Right. You cannot do term limits. Chuck, if we don't do that, we're done. We can own this next century if we actually implement conservative reforms. I'm not running to manage the decline of this great country. I'm running to make real changes in D.C.
Well, I tell you, your state, according to CNBC, ranks 46th out of 50 in 2015 as a state to do business. How do you take that record to conservative Republicans and say, make me the executive in charge?
Chuck, now we're a top 10 state for private sector job creation. After 25 years of out-migration, 7 years in a row of in-migration, we actually have more people working and living here in Louisiana than ever before. We have $60 billion, 90,000 jobs coming into our state. We are ranked higher in every business ranking that has been done since I've taken governor. We're now at our highest ranking ever. We've turned the state around. When you look at what was going on post-Katrina, many were wondering whether they could come back here. Again, decades of out-migration, we have reversed that. Highest ever per capita state income ranking in our state's history. 8 different credit upgrades, our highest credit ratings in decades, and also the fewest number of state employees in decades. We measure success by how people are doing in the real world, not in the government sector. I know that a lot of politicians, Republicans and Democrats, don't like that, but that's how we measure success.
Well, we will see you on the campaign trail, see how voters react. Governor Jindal, thanks for coming on Meet the Press. Stay safe on the trail, sir.
Thanks, Chuck.
You got it. Coming up.